Hey everybody, welcome to another Rackspace Office Hours Hangout. My name is Alan Bush and we are broadcasting live from the castle, Rackspace's headquarters here in San Antonio, Texas. I am joined as usual by Drew Cox.
Hey guys, how you guys doing?
Hey, it's always good to have you, Drew. Missed you the last couple of weeks, but you've been out traveling and it's good to have you back.
I'm glad to have myself back. I've been owned by vacation and business trips, so it's good to be back in the saddle.
Yep. It's definitely good to have you back, and we've got a really fun show today. I'm excited to get to talk about this. This is something that I think is really big for Rackspace and support in general. So we've actually got the product manager and principal architect for our Fanatical Support of Microsoft Azure, and really excited about this. So we're joined today by Gerard Canu and Dugan Sheehan, who are joining us today. Hi guys, how you doing?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon as well.
Yeah, great to have you guys. Great to have you. Really, really good show that we're going to be putting together today, and I think that's going to be really educational. Definitely for me, it's a brand new offering for us. So the more that we get to find out about it, the better. And these are always the ones that I like to do the most, where we get to get a little bit of extra information on our own. So
yeah, it's personally valuable to be able to add to our set of tools and our ability to answer questions as customers come in with their requests. So anytime we get to learn, we're happy. And this is not a topic we would be able to handle on our own. So I'm glad to have experts.
Definitely.
Sure thing.
So let's get you guys introduced here. Gerard, we'll start with you. You're both very long-term rackers, but Gerard, you've been here slightly longer, I believe, right? About 11 years?
No, I'm only a 9-year racker.
Oh, I got those two backwards there. Sorry about that. Yeah, but 9 years is a really good tenure here at Rackspace.
Well tenured.
And let's talk a little bit about how you kind of started off. What have you done here at Rackspace?
Well, I started off within our help desk organization back in 2006. Quickly moved up through the ranks, was a team lead, managed the help desk, and then decided that I wanted to get back into really getting into the technology and playing around with the technology. So I moved to our engineering group, became a systems engineer for our internal IT group. And about 4 years ago, I decided that I wanted to make a move to be more customer facing. So I moved to our product organization, where I did product operations for a couple of years, and then I spent my last 3 years as a product manager. I've managed our SharePoint product, our dedicated Exchange product, and was helped launch our Link product, which is now Skype for Business.
Yeah, we actually had on Josh Blaylock and Mike. Man, why do I ever say names? Because I always forget about Mike in there as well.
The Link team's been on, and we've been able
to
pick their brains a bit, and that was definitely a good show. And the expanded product portfolio is really accelerated as we're getting into some of these additional products that we can add support on top of.
Yeah, and Josh and I used to work together back in our IT days. We both came from the RIT organization.
Right.
And when we were looking for a Link engineer, the first person I went to go tap was bring Josh back in, because I know he had done some UCS back in the days.
Yeah, he's really sharp, and he actually ran our Active Directory implementation. I'm sure that, as you're aware, but ran the whole Rackspace Active Directory implementation. He was the very first racker we actually had on this show 2 years ago, talking about Active Directory. So
Good track record.
Good track record with that guy. Yeah, good on you for recognizing that. Also, I noticed you mentioned that you were originally a contractor with Rackspace, right? So I mean, you started not quite in the mailroom, but you started and have really worked your way up.
Yeah, I was given an opportunity to come in and do some projects with Rackspace with desktop deployments, and they loved my attitude, and they really loved how I supported my customers, which were rackers at the time, and that attitude got me an offer within 45 days. Nice. I became a full-time racker.
That's awesome. That's great, and we're glad to have you 9 years later. 9 years
yes.
Later. So Dugan, by process of elimination, you are the 11-year racker, and
I am.
I just got my emails mixed up on that one. So Tell us about those first 2 years before Gerard showed up.
So when I started, we were actually still downtown in the Broadway. No, we were in the Weston Center. Had a couple floors there. I had just graduated from Trinity University here in San Antonio and was looking for a job. I'd had a friend that graduated a year earlier that had started at Rackspace and couldn't stop talking about it and was really enjoying his time. So he said, get involved any way you can. I happened to find an entry-level position as a monitoring technician, so handling alerts for our enterprise segment, and just did lots of on-the-job training and worked my way up through the technical ranks doing system administration, then lead tech, and then some architectural work, and then last year was inducted into the TCT program, and then was lucky enough to join the Microsoft practice area beginning of this year, and have been working with Gerry and some of the others on productizing our private cloud offerings for Microsoft as well as the newly announced Azure offering.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. The technical career track is really, really interesting, and I'm glad that we have a representative on. We've had a few actually on over the last little bit, but I think it's another one of those things that Rackspace does really well, where we take rackers who who are showing really great skill and in the technical field, and allowing them to have a career path that doesn't necessarily take them away from those skills. So we're glad that we get to let you exercise those skills more. So great to have you on. And then you guys, how long have you been working together on this specific project, getting Azure support launched?
So it really started kind of this year. I joined the team in January, and we've been on kind of a fast and furious pace to get everything organized and ready. I was actually in Orlando last week at WPC for the announcement, and that was a really good time. But specifically working with Gerry for, I guess, the last seven plus months.
Well, very good. And so the fact that you were pushing this forward may have gotten you into this conversation, but what experience did you have with Azure before jumping into the specific project?
Actually, very little. So I had just kind of used it on my own a little bit with just some test accounts and things. Had worked a lot with the Rackspace public cloud. Had a lot of familiarity with APIs. PowerShell commandlets and things of that nature, so it was a pretty natural transition, just kind of understanding what features Azure had that were unique, and making sure that we understood how those would fit into the Rackspace story and the Fanatical Support that we're offering around it.
Very cool. Let's kind of get into what the new offering really is. So kind of give us the definition. For those who might not know, maybe start with what Azure is, and then go from there. And what does support on top of Azure look like as offered by Rackspace?
Well, so what does Azure look like? Azure is Microsoft's public cloud, built and born out of Hyper-V, pushed into Microsoft data centers and made available to customers around the world, similar to what you may hear from other provider clouds. It's public cloud from Microsoft. And so really what the offering is last week we launched Fanatical Support for Microsoft Azure. And so a couple weeks ago you had Javad, who's one of our VPs and who kind of owns Fanatical Support. And it's taking that offering, which we do in our data centers today. We've done in some other data centers as well with OpenStack and some of our other technologies. But now it's taking that to the next level and allowing customers to choose another platform outside of our data center, outside of our public cloud. This is just the support and the Fanatical Support for those workloads in Microsoft's Azure public cloud.
Okay. And so how much of this needs to be in existence already to be taken care of, or does it need to be a brand new deployment on top of the Azure cloud for it to be one that can leverage our support?
We have offerings that suit both kind of customers. If it's a greenfield deployment, they haven't done anything in Azure. So if a customer is looking to, we want to get out of the data center business, we don't want to be on physical hardware, we want to be in cloud. So a lift and shift model, we can help them with that. Or it's an existing customer who's been banging their head against the wall with Azure because it as much as they try to enable things in the technologies within Azure, it's still a complex environment. Some things are very, very simple, but when you start really getting into the weeds, there's some complexities to it. And they can come to us and say, hey, we're having some problems with this. We've experimented with it. We love Fanatical Support. We know you guys are the experts. Can you help us with these cloud workloads? And we have cloud expertise from our own cloud, and we can take that skill set and that expertise and push it forward with Microsoft Azure.
Yeah, I think there's two kind of main ways that we're engaging or problems that we're solving. So, one is, as Gerry mentioned, there is some complexity just to the Azure platform itself. So, what are these features? How do they fit together? When would I want to use one over the other? That kind of thing at the platform level. And then also our goal was just to make it possible and make it comfortable for customers to run production workloads in Azure. So that is getting down a lot of times to the operating system level on the VM and offering that same kind of traditional white glove treatment that Rackspace is famous for, patching, monitoring, troubleshooting, alert response, consulting, architectural guidance. So kind of packaging that all together and making or helping customers get comfortable with running their mission critical stuff on the Azure platform or in a hybrid environment. We also have a Hyper-V-based private cloud that we can tie into Azure to kind of get that bursting or right fit application stuff.
Well, the thing that's most interesting to me, I think, is the ecosystem concept of having. There's definitely value in deploying, one of the tools we mentioned, Link, Skype for Business previously. I know it sounds like Gerard, you worked on SharePoint. So all of these are good tools in and of themselves that do a specific thing, but it's this leveraging an entire ecosystem. And Microsoft has a very robust ecosystem with tons and tons of features. What does that look like in a little bit more depth when you're talking about customers who may have their feet already in the water? Maybe they've dabbled their toes in one or more of these products, but really want to consume the entire Microsoft product suite and have already started maybe with us with Exchange or something along those lines. How does that look? And what are the key features, benefits, and maybe a couple things to keep in mind so that you don't stub your toe on some of those corners that we've identified already as those experts?
Sure. So for initial launch, we really focused on kind of the care and feeding of individual virtual machines. I think as this product progresses, we will be taking more opinionated approaches to kind of entire application deployments within the Microsoft ecosystems, like as you mentioned, Exchange, SharePoint. Within each of those, there's use cases for kind of a hybrid environment or potentially just an Azure-only environment. So it's something we're very much working towards. I think right now, our best example is probably around SQL. So we have extended our traditional Rackspace SQL offering into Azure. So that is the same kind of architectural guidance, troubleshooting, optimization tasks on an infrastructure as service VM running SQL, or there's actually a SQL as a service option in Azure, and both of those are available for the Rackspace support.
Well, SQL as a service would be an interesting option for some people, I think, that might not want to have the entire overhead of an entire, Windows cloud server just for running SQL on it. I think it would also allow them to kind of scale a little bit more independently than having to run entire servers just for that. So that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think SQL as a service is going to grow quite a bit. As you mentioned, it does take some of the complexity out, and some of that complexity that people don't want to be dealing with, that don't add a lot of benefit to their organization. There's a lot of add-in features like just checkboxes or toggle switches to do replication, to backup to blob storage within Azure Cloud. So they're really making it kind of a fast and simple approach to a tool that all of us kind of use and love.
And letting the people who have built the tool build the as a service option really makes a lot of sense, because they've got access to every last bit of how they've done that, from the infrastructure, the code, and all of that. So that's a really fantastic set of tools to be able to jump in and use. One of the things that we recommend quite often is the A/B testing approach, where You may try a specific workload on a few different options, and I could see where deploying a SQL solution with Azure makes a lot of sense because Microsoft, they would do that well, but also knowing that if they wanted to go hardware, maybe they could use the hardware they already have here and run some tests. How well does this work versus that Azure product, and make that decision? Is the benefit, cost-benefit analysis pointing me one direction or another? So the fact that they can work through one organization and test both of those things sounds like a pretty compelling opportunity and option.
Yeah, absolutely. And it being cloud-based, it's something that's not very time-consuming to set up. You're not reliant on, hands in the data center setting up servers and installing operating systems. Everything is API-based and available within the Azure website itself. So yeah, those test scenarios are something we definitely encourage. Kick the tires, try it out, give us feedback. We do have that broad portfolio, so if you do decide you want to run SQL on dedicated hardware, you have that option. If you are transitioning to a more public cloud model, we certainly encourage you to try out the SQL as a service or IaaS VM with SQL on it.
Well, I think we're going to get into a couple of those things. Dugan, looks like your camera cut there for a second, but you're back, so that's good to have you back. We heard you the whole time, but we missed your face there. And that distracted me from my question, so I'm going to have to step back here and regroup. Maybe someone else can push the conversation.
Well, Gerard, I was kind of curious if you kind of had an idea of what some of the what type of a customer or do we expect to be the early adopters of our Fanatical Support for Azure? Is there a certain characteristic that you might have seen with other customers that would kind of resonate this type of offering?
Absolutely. I think Rackspace is uniquely positioned to provide a hybrid scenario or hybrid solution to our customers. And when we say hybrid, we're talking about most of our customers, our data centers are cloud to them, but we're talking about in an on-premise data center that's run and managed by Rackspace, and connecting to Azure to have a workload that transcends those two platforms. You're talking about SQL earlier. That's a great use case to run your data stores on a physical server. Those data stores are typically persistent workloads, and persistent workloads are oftentimes better in a private cloud environment. So being able to run that workload in that private cloud, have a connection up to Azure, and have your Azure web tier, or Azure be your web tier, and so you can scale your web tier out as you grow. If you go on Oprah or Shark Tank or something like that, you've got an option to really grow that out, but still have that performant database on-premise. MS SQL gives you some great options in the cloud, and you can obviously run SQL up there, but the cost per performance metrics may work better in a private cloud scenario, and then just scaling out your web tier up in Azure. So we see a lot of hybrid scenarios, and Rackspace managing our own data centers and now managing the Azure cloud platform gives us a unique position to offer that to our customers. Very few providers can do that today.
I think that's a huge differentiator that's going to pay dividends as people get a better understanding of that. So thanks for really clarifying specific use cases. The other thing I think that comes up then is good ways to get started. So knowing that you have these options, where's the first step need to be, or where's a good first step to begin to understand the value of Fanatical Support on top of Azure? Where would you make those recommendations of maybe step 1 or 2 for a customer?
When a customer comes to us to start the conversation, we're going to try to work with them to truly understand what their business is and what their workloads are, what their applications are doing, and recommend a solution that works best for them. If you're a .NET shop, you live in the Windows world, you've got Exchange, you've got Office 365, you've got those services. It makes total sense for you to be able to deploy in a private and public cloud workload that is built and has been born into that platform. For customers that, if a customer if we look at a customer situation and their applications don't fit that model, we have other solutions to be able to do that. Whether it's our OpenStack private cloud, our VMware offerings in a private cloud, and then also our Rackspace public cloud. So this is just another platform that makes sense for customers who have workloads that make the best fit up into Azure. And so taking a look at that.
Well, that sounds very much in line with what we typically recommend, is having that conversation with Rackspace to define what your needs really are, and from there we can make the recommendation. And it's this conversation we're having today is just indicative of that ever-growing set of options that we can bring to bear to solve a specific problem. And while we can solve many problems, it's nice to have additional tools that may be able to solve a specific problem a little bit better, and may get around a specific bottleneck that may be in the way doing it a traditional way. So to jump off from that, what specific advantages and where are there some real wins that Azure now brings to the table that we didn't have right off the bat, or may have been a little bit more cumbersome in the past?
I think some big wins. First of all, Azure Active Directory. Active Directory is a directory service, and it's from Microsoft, and we can run domain controllers up in the cloud, but Azure Active Directory takes that directory and makes it an as-a-service model, and allows customers to have that identity that transcends private cloud, public cloud, as well as other applications integrating into, if a customer has Salesforce.com, being able to have that SSO integration into that, or using some other hybrid connectivity where a customer can choose to have other applications outside of Rackspace, outside of Azure itself, have that communication, and so that they can interact, and so they can really have their workloads fit into all the tools that they use. And that Active Directory and that identity service is something that's not necessarily unique to Azure, but based on Active Directory, it is very Azure specific. And there's other solutions as well. There's 84 different services up in Azure. So it's a very, very robust cloud. And most of we're still learning about some of the nuances, but it's 84 services and growing. And so as new services get added, it's us understanding those services and being able to offer them to our customers. Things that we offer in our cloud may not be offered up in Azure. Same thing, Azure has services that we can't provide in an on-premise or in our public cloud today.
Yeah, that's great, and it all goes back to exactly what you said, is helping the customers and finding something that works for them, right? And so we're not just offering them a Microsoft-based solution. We're offering them all of the solutions. I mean, you mentioned private cloud. We've recently done more with Microsoft Private Cloud in the last year or so. We have our public cloud offerings of Microsoft products, and of course our dedicated offerings as well. And then now you throw in the Azure public cloud with it, and they have anything at their disposal, really.
Yeah, I think these conversations really started. So Dugan had talked about him joining the team back in January, but in November of last year, we launched Fanatical Support for Hyper-V, and then also Cloud Platform. That's Microsoft's full private cloud stack. And then in March, we made it available globally, launching into our international markets. But during those times, we had conversations with customers. This is great, being able to have a platform that's consistent, not only with what I'm doing in my home shop, but also now that I can connect Azure to that. And at that point in time, we were just offering Federation, but this really takes it up the stack of being an end-to-end service provider for those customer environments.
I think that the Rackspace approach generally is to offer solutions, whatever they may be, and being part of OpenStack means we have all of these people building tools on top of OpenStack. Being a partner with Microsoft means that as Microsoft grows their suite of offerings, we are able to grow our suite of solutions. And being those experts and learning what it really is going to take to be excellent there is a benefit to all of our customers. It's a benefit to be able to say, we had this portfolio, now we have this portfolio, and because it's bigger, we're including Microsoft in this, and they're adding features. So that's work that we're not doing to build the features. It's work that we're doing to learn how to use them best, how to make the best results for our customers. And so to be able to continue pushing that portfolio forward, not necessarily products that we build, but products that we master and that we can leverage on behalf of your end goals, is a hugely valuable thing. And so the most exciting piece of this this new announcement to me is that more and more customers can come to us and say, this is my problem, and we can say, well, we've got the best solution for that. We've learned through our interactions with the ecosystem, generally the broad IT ecosystem, that this is going to fit much better than your other options right out of the gate, and you'll be able to hit the ground running more quickly than you would have otherwise. And that's very much a Rackspace mantra, and very much the way we want to approach technology is how do we solve problems with it, how do we solve customer problems with it, not as fun as the bells and whistles are, it's the solutions that are provided that become really valuable.
It's absolutely correct. We are a solution company, and my friends often ask me, so what do you do as a product manager? What do you produce? They're looking for the products, and really our products, we work with our partners, Microsoft, NetApp, VMware, the entire ecosystem. Those are our products, but what do we make? We make customers happy. It's Fanatical Support. That is our product, and it's how do we apply that to all of our services across the board. And this is just the next iteration. And we've been doing it for quite some time. We started in '98, just servers on bread racks, moving up, and then in 2001, shortly before Dugan joined, launching Windows support, and then growing up that stack through SQL, through SharePoint Link Exchange. Earlier this year, we launched Fanatical Support for Office 365, so giving customers just another choice. And then earlier this year is the general availability for Google Apps for Business, so making it a choice for customers who don't need the Microsoft Productivity Suite. They've got another choice as well.
Absolutely, solving customer problems, however, is the best fit, and that's an exciting thing to see, and we've it's accelerated. So thank you for finding opportunities to leverage tools that are already out there for our customers' success. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, what other questions we got?
Tons of them. I think that the big question that that we want to answer is, we're not giving up on Microsoft and the Rackspace cloud and Rackspace hybrid solutions or anything like that. I mean, what are we still? What are the benefits of sticking with us for some of that workload?
You're absolutely right. I mean, we love our cloud, and this is not a indictment of our cloud. This is really leveraging our partner and our work with Microsoft over the years to expand our partnership and support their workloads. Microsoft is a very large company. They're dedicated to building out their services into their cloud. We're just leveraging what Microsoft can build and produce, like the world's greatest, one of the world's best enterprise software companies. That's truly what they are. For over 30 years, Microsoft has been around, and they know enterprise software. And Rackspace knows Fanatical Support. It's really the bringing together. 1 + 1 = 3. The sum of its parts, the sum is greater than the sum of its part. Sum of its whole greater than the sum of its parts. You get it. And the marriage or the partnership of two great companies that understand those two segments. Because if you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrants, the leader in the managed cloud segment is Rackspace. If you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant for infrastructure as a service clouds, Microsoft is a leader in that Magic Quadrant as well. So it's taking those two great companies and bringing them together for the offering.
Yeah, I think to add to that is, it's really about, empowering customers and enabling choice. So we want to be able to provide service on top of the leading technologies. So there are going to be some customers that are in the OpenStack ecosystem. They're either using it on-premise or have been using it since Rackspace initially launched it with NASA. So that's something they like, they're comfortable with, they've built tooling around, and we certainly want to continue to support them and have them be a customer. There's going to be different people or different customers that are very immersed in the Microsoft ecosystem, whether they're already using Azure or whether they are a customer of ours getting Windows support or on our private cloud platform, and they want to take advantage of some of the native integrations that are available there. So it's really about leveraging the Rackspace support and expertise to help customers on whatever platform is the best fit for them or they have a preference for initially.
Great. That's good. We did have some other questions that are coming in, and I want to take a minute here to we have one that came in through the Q&A app, Tyler. But I want to just mention that anybody else that's watching right now, go ahead and drop us a line either through crowdcast.io, through the Q&A app on Google+, or drop us a comment on YouTube or Twitter or something like that. We'll pick up those comments and be more than happy to answer them. But we do have one from Daniel that I'm going to go with right now. Daniel asks, "Hi guys, what do you think would be the best answer to someone who asks Rackspace if we can guarantee our SLAs working with a third party, and who is liable for it in this partnership?"
That's a fantastic question. I feel it isn't worth, Dugan. Our customers have two ways to purchase Fanatical Support for Microsoft Azure. They can purchase infrastructure plus support, which is we will resell them the Azure infrastructure, and on top of that we will sell them our support. Or the customer can bring their own subscription and just purchase support from us. So let's tackle that first scenario first. So we have signed a reseller agreement with Microsoft. We're one of 3 partners worldwide that is able to resell the Microsoft public cloud Azure in this format. And in that scenario, and this is great for customers. They can come to us. It's a single place to go. They come to us for accounting, for billing, for everything. If there's an SLA violation, even if it's Microsoft's cloud SLA violation, we will help that customer receive those SLA remedies or those SLA credits. But our goal here is that, yes, downtime is possibly inevitable, and it is our partner's cloud, but we have direct lines back to the Azure engineers that if there are problems, we're in sync with them and working to help our customers' problems. But our goal is to architect a solution that avoids downtime, because failure is somewhat inevitable, but if we've architected a high available solution that is geo-redundant or moves across multiple data center regions, that a failure in a single service shouldn't impact a customer unless there's just some sort of massive failure and the whole cloud falls down. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Microsoft's too invested in to let that happen. The second model is the bring your own subscription, where customers who have large enterprise agreements with Microsoft, they have made huge investments in those. They have pre-built Azure spend, if you will, and they'll have a discount from Microsoft for that volume. They can bring those subscriptions to us, and we'll support them fanatically. Very few providers out there doing that today. In those scenarios, obviously the customers are going to come to us for support. We will not be able to help them with those. We will not be able to transact those financial transactions for them. However, we will be there assisting them, letting them know, hey, yeah, there was an SLA violation. We will help you work with Microsoft to receive your SLA remedies or your SLA credits when there is downtime. But in both scenarios, our SLA Rackspace is a response time guarantee that we are responding to alerts within a time frame based on the severity of that alert, so the customers know that they've got someone to reach out to, so that in the case that there is something that goes wrong or something does go bump in the middle of the night, they can pick up the phone and they have someone to talk to, or they can get on chat, or they can put in a ticket to have their services help with having their services restored.
So in that situation, you're really freeing up your personal capital, your personnel, and those resources to go and work on mission critical growth for your business, and let Rackspace handle the day-to-day, patching, monitoring, that kind of thing, and those people can now focus on on your business and let Rackspace focus on taking care of what's going on with Azure, and you've been able to derive more value out of people you already have hired.
Absolutely, that's part of Fanatical Support. There are pieces of Fanatical Support when you start getting the nitty-gritty that are pretty boring, monitoring and building and carrying and feeding the servers and patching. Those get arbitrary after a certain point in time. But this frees the customers up to not focus on those boring things, and they can go focus on the exciting things, their core technologies, their core business, and making their customers happy, or making their application better, or pushing out into new markets themselves, so they don't have to focus on running the servers. They can focus on running the business.
Absolutely. And then we'll also be able to provide any of our best practices that can help them do so more efficiently with the resources on the IT side, not necessarily on the personnel side.
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, it looks like we have an additional question here. Stephen Slattery has asked, are there different levels of service that we will offer? So would we offer different tiers of support?
Right now, it's a single service level. It's just our Fanatical Support. We don't plan on having additional service levels, but we may have add-on service levels, or we will have add-on service levels in the future. At launch, we did the database services, professional services offering a part of it. So if a customer wants additional database services offering, our DBA team will be able to support that at launch, and that's in addition. Additional fees may apply to our Fanatical Support. And down the road, we're looking at other possibilities, other named applications, other service levels for more advanced monitoring, or more using the rest of the Rackspace ecosystem to help offer a greater level of service on top of Microsoft Azure.
Okay. So can we make sure we cover everything that is included in the current service level that is offered?
You want me to go over it? Or
could you? Yeah, please.
Sure. So at launch, we're Fanatical Support, which is monitoring, patching, deployment,
backup, antivirus.
Yeah. I mean, those base level services that you expect, and then obviously, and part of that, the response time guarantee. And we're focusing in on our core business today, which is infrastructure, and infrastructure as a service. And so those components, the monitoring, the patching, the backup, antivirus, and managing and maintaining that, and helping customers with those cycles, moving that forward with the IaaS components of compute, network, and storage, as well as Active Directory, Azure Site Recovery, which is a very unique BCDR tool from Microsoft, and slowly expanding. So as I mentioned, the 84 services, we've covered probably about 15 within that offering, and we've made a huge splash with the launch at the Worldwide Partner Conference. We want to keep that conversation growing and expand upon that as we go forward, adding in additional service offerings in August, September, October. So continually to grow this offering, and especially as we move into the platform as a service offerings that are very, very interesting for our customers.
Okay. And then the additional layer of that, which is really a hallmark of Rackspace support, and what that means to any of our customers, would be to cover recommendations and consulting. So when a customer comes in with a problem, or something that they'd like to run more efficiently, or whatever the case may be, being able to speak with an expert who can intelligently cover the options and the pros and cons of each, as well as a recommended best practice as a way forward. So that is a general approach of Rackspace support, but that still applies here as Fanatical Support on top of Azure.
Absolutely. So yeah, the architectural services are something we certainly include. We want to be able to work with customers to solve their business problems and put the solutions in place. I think one example is, when I was at the WPC conference last week, there was a customer who was talking about his challenges with his application going down during Microsoft's quarterly infrastructure patching. So helping customers with those scenarios, teaching them about creating availability sets, doing internal or external load balancing and creating that kind of high availability that they need is certainly something we offer and want to engage in those conversations.
Well, and we've also been able to build all of our lessons learned off of the cloud that we have built ourselves, and the recommendations we've made to our customers there. A lot of those tenets remain true no matter what cloud you're building on top of, and doing things to mitigate for those known impactful events of we're going to be patching our environment. So you guys know about it now. Now, how do you react? Well, that's something that we have learned ourselves over running our cloud, and how we can take those lessons learned and bake them into the approach of really any cloud offering is hugely valuable. So I think you have quite a bit of experience making those types of recommendations in our cloud and with our products without the Azure conversation at all, but now we just have another arena in which we can bring those same lessons to bear.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's going to be certain approaches or practices that are, cloud agnostic, that are just going to be things that you want to do in this kind of modern technology world. And we certainly we integrate with the other groups at Rackspace to make sure we're all communicating the other practice areas, share those kind of lessons learned, and try to integrate them appropriately into our particular business.
Very cool.
Well, and back to the the advice, the architecture advice, and things like that. I mean, like, Gerard, that's the very first thing you said, is that we're going to listen to the customer, find out what their needs are, and find the solution that works for them, whether that's all Rackspace, all Microsoft, or whatever works for them. And that's something that that's just a great service that we provide, and not many people will step back and take that completely, like you said, cloud agnostic approach to just find the solution that works best for the customer and get them into a solution that's going to work for them for the long run.
And we're going to build on our expertise of cloud architecture. So the services the names may change. So instead of being RabbitMQ, it's Service Bus. The nuances of cloud are very, very similar, even across multiple platforms. You're still going to have you're going to have your API availability. You're going to want to have your web services, and you're also going to want to have your mobile-specific services, and all backed into a data store, whether it be MS SQL or MySQL or another technology, depending on that platform and what works best, and then tying into, as I mentioned earlier, Service Bus or RabbitMQ for your messaging service or for your feed service.
Right. One other question that I had is kind of, we see a lot of customers that run run the business applications kind of tend to skew more toward the Microsoft line of products. What is having this Azure partnership and being able to support Azure? What does that do for those that are running, SharePoint and running some of their collaboration applications and everything that they use to run their business? What does that change for that customer?
We're still investigating some of those. You bring up SharePoint, and as my former product, I'm very interested in seeing how we run SharePoint in the cloud. And at the Ignite conference back in May, Microsoft announced that they would have commercially viable support for, it gets confusing, commercially viable support for SharePoint, Exchange, and some of their other applications up in Azure. And we're looking at those feature sets and what's available, basically be able to set up that exe and run that up in Azure. And where that makes sense, I think not necessarily. In terms of SharePoint, I wouldn't run that necessarily today as a production workload up in Azure, but definitely if a customer is large enough and doesn't want to have and can't purchase or lease a lot of hardware to be able to run their test and dev environment, that's a great scenario where now they've got in Rackspace Private Cloud, they have their SharePoint running, and that's their intranet or even extranet, and then up in Azure they've got their test and dev environments. And the great thing is that it's Windows, so it's the same operating system that runs up in Azure, and they'll be able to bring that down, and they'll be confident that platform that they're testing on for test, dev, staging, whatever they want up in Azure will work well in a private cloud scenario.
Great.
And they don't have to build out the infrastructure and have it just sitting around when they're not using it, so they get to save money there.
Absolutely, and I mean, just all the great scenarios, whether it be a failover back up into Azure. So using Azure is a if you will, a cold site or even a warm site for a disaster recovery scenario.
Very cool.
Good. Well, we're kind of running up toward the end of our time here, and I just want to thank you guys again. I did have one more question before we finish up. This is kind of a personal question, just as longtime Microsoft support guys, what are you most excited about, or looking forward to the most about our opportunity to fanatically support Azure?
I really think it's a number of things. There are a lot of features and integrations that Azure has that haven't previously been available on other cloud platforms. One that Gerry mentioned that I think is extremely exciting is the Azure Site Recovery, which allows customers to do orchestrated backup and recovery of their machines, whether they are on VMware, whether they are on Rackspace Hyper-V or customer on-premise Hyper-V into Azure. So, when we think about disaster recovery, that's been one of those things that is usually cost prohibitive for customers to take advantage of. And the ASR product from Azure, I think, is something that's really exciting. And it's those types of releases that get me really excited as an engineer to test on, to try out, and to use as in my tool belt to help customers with their business problems.
A clear solution to a clear customer concern.
Absolutely.
So, very cool.
For me, it would have to be Azure Active Directory and what they're doing with the new version of Windows. I mean, to be able to take a machine that's a desktop server and join it to an Active Directory in the cloud, it's just fantastic. So being able to take those directory services, not have to have them on-premise anymore. If you want to have, from a personal perspective, not that the Rackspace doesn't do desktop support today, not that we can't in the future, but just my old role as a deployment engineer doing desktop deployment, that's just a fantastic option to be able to have a directory service, especially as the workforce has become more and more remote, people working from home so much that you don't have to be tethered all the time to that corporate Active Directory, or that you don't have to be VPN'd in to be able to have your authentication mechanism, especially as they start pulling in the multi-factor authentication pieces, so you can still have a secure connection. And there's some other amazing things you can do with Azure Active Directory in terms of being able to have your users access information that you have up in your SharePoint Online. So as opposed to having a VPN, getting home, setting up your VPN, getting that connected, it's really you go to a site, you enter your credentials, multi-factor in, and now from either your desktop or a tablet, you can access information that may be available inside your corporate intranet. And just the options and the flexibility we'll be able to give our customers with that is just super exciting as a former Active Directory administrator and a desktop deployment engineer.
Yeah, that's something that I'm a little bit interested in as well. We have, Drew and I both started off on the cloud launch team, and we talked to customers that were brand new to Rackspace. And so, a lot of the times we would have that question: how do I do Active Directory in the cloud? I want to make sure that I have all of my all my employees that are working from home, like you said, or are or are often the office over here on Main Street and then the office across town. How do I get them all together under one under one Active Directory deployment? And the option there was set up some type of a physical firewall and use that as a VPN and connect it through that way. And that's potentially cost prohibitive for a lot of people. And just being able to have one option that does that is really nice to have. Like you said, I mean, just no VPN, no firewall. Just do it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Well, guys, thank you. Really appreciate having you both on. It was really good to talk and to learn. I know I learned quite a little bit more about how we're running this, and really excited to see what comes of it. I know that we have some customers that are going to be very happy with it, and I just look forward to getting more and more customers. So again, thank you both for taking a little bit of time out of your day and joining us.
My pleasure.
Absolutely, and I'm just going to sign off with one last piece of information. If customers are curious about our Azure offering, they can go to rackspace.com/Azure. Very simple. Collect all the information, all the SLA information, the complete Surface offerings available there, plus our data sheets that they can go to learn more about the Fanatical Support for Microsoft Azure offering.
Great.
And we'll put that link in the notes on the event so that people can grab that pretty quickly and easily.
Yeah, we definitely will. All right. Well, thanks again to both of you. I guess we'll go ahead and sign off. We'll do this every week. Next week, not tomorrow.
I hope it's not tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
I wasn't ready.
we're not prepared. No, next week we're going to be talking about GitHub basics, actually, with Jesse Noller, who heads up our developer experience team.
Yeah.
It's something that we recommend a lot of people do is to use GitHub to keep their code in a single,
Clean and tidy and sane.
Yeah, and I don't think we've really ever explained how to kind of get started with that. So Jesse's going to come in and talk about that and some of the other interesting things that we're doing, like hosting a lot of our job openings in GitHub where the developers that would potentially be applying for that job already are. So
Might as well.
that should be fun to talk about. So we'll be back next week, and we're going to go ahead and sign off and say see you all next week.
Sounds good.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Later, guys.